Welcome to MamaFuel, the podcast that fuels every mama's heart, soul, mind, and body, and hopefully sparks a few dreams along the way. I'm Ann Ferguson, Chief Nurturer and Mama Mentor at the Centered Mama Project, and your host for this podcast. I'll be sharing real, raw, and often funny conversations with beautiful mamas from around the world to remind you that you're not alone and that you're doing amazingly on this wild journey of shepherding small humans as they make their way on our beautiful planet. Let's get started. Today's episode of MamaFuel is, in a way, brought to you by my birthday, which at time of recording this introduction happened a little over a month ago. On my birthday week, I made a post requesting that people be kind to each other and send me a happy picture of themselves for my birthday. I had shamelessly borrowed this idea from a woman named Kristina Kuzmic, who you may know as the Truth Bomb Mom. She's my birthday twin, randomly, and had asked people on her extremely well-followed and very popular Facebook page to do a kindness to someone else as a gift to her for her birthday. And I thought this was such a great idea that I also asked for the same thing and tacked on a little request for the universe to provide me with the opportunity to interview Kristina directly for this podcast. Kristina is one of the people on my top 6 list of absolute dream people to interview, including Brene Brown, Glennon Doyle, and other people as well. So aiming high for people that I would just love to have conversations with. And the universe delivered. So I'm beyond tickled to share today's conversation with you and also to share something else, because as Kristina and I were talking, one of the things that came up was mommy shaming and how important it is for us to just stop judging each other and to just stop essentially being unkind to each other. She talks about bullying. And to me, one of the biggest ways that we can stop bullying each other and showing that behavior to our kids and making it okay is in stopping bullying ourselves. And you can't know if you're bullying yourself if you don't even know what you're listening for. So to help you with that, I created what I've called the self-love scan. And if you go to thecenteredmamaproject.com/scan, you can download that. It's a free resource for you. And it basically is a series of questions that helps you realize where you might be bullying yourself, where you might have some needs, where you maybe need some support and don't even realize it, and then helps you figure out ways to get that support. So it's a super useful resource. I know it's going to be helpful. So make sure you go there to thecenteredmamaproject.com/scan and download that. Without any further ado, here is my conversation with Kristina, which I am so thrilled to share with you. And Kristina, if you're listening, again, it was so much fun. Thank you. Enjoy. Hello and welcome to today's episode of MamaFuel, the podcast. I have extra butterflies in my stomach and chills all over me because before I even started this podcast, I made a list of people who I would love to have on. And it is a long list, but there are 6 people who occupy a golden space and their own separate little dream podcast guest list. And today's guest is on that list. I'm so delighted to introduce you to a woman who provides light relief, tears of recognition, and so much joy and pleasure to mamas around the world. And I'm sure you probably have heard of her as the Truth Bomb Mom. Today's guest is the one and only Kristina Kuzmic. Welcome and thank you so much for being on today.
Thanks for having me. I'm so excited.
It is such a pleasure to meet you. I feel like I know you, even though obviously it's kind of a one-sided thing, right? Because you're often, always live with your page on Facebook and on your YouTube channel, so people get a real insight into your life. But it's kind of a one-sided thing. So I was telling Kristina, just for the benefit of people who have us in their ears, that I have very big feet. I have 2 kids. We exchange a couple things just so it kind of evens things out a little bit.
Right.
So let's start for people who have been following you and also for people to whom you will be a new, fresh, delightful voice. What does your life look like right now?
Wow. It's a circus with 3 humans I'm responsible for and 2 animals. No, it's really busy now. I was a stay-at-home mom for a while, and then I started doing this and, making my videos and all that. And then once it blew up, I am in the depth of trying to figure out how to, manage it all, at least in a mediocre way. We're not aiming for perfection ever in this house, but I'm trying to just keep my head above the water. And most importantly, enjoy it, because I think a lot of times when we get super busy, we forget to find the joy in it.
Totally, because it becomes, you get into that kind of running pace, and you're like, as you're running along. I just did a run this weekend, my first longish run, and I was like, okay, water, grab the water and kind of keep running. It's that, like, what are your most basic needs, and just keep it all rolling, keep it all going.
Yeah, I think when we have so much to, again, I have 3 kids, different ages. My oldest is almost 15. My youngest one's about to turn 4. And then I got one in the middle there. And then it feels like I have 5 jobs, because I have my videos and I'm writing a book and I'm working on another show, and it's just a lot. And what I'm glad I learned a few years back that's really helping me now is that if I'm not enjoying any of it, most likely I'm the one standing in the way of my own joy. And I think that's something that a lot of times parents don't realize. It's like, oh, I just want to be happy and I just want to enjoy it. And it's like, well, no one's going to come over to your house, ring your doorbell, and hand you a box of joy. Like, you're going to have to create it yourself. You're going to have to find those moments where you're like, you know what, kids, let's just do something crazy today and have fun and make a memory.
How did you figure that out? Was there one moment, or was it a kind of creeping realization over time?
Yeah, it wasn't one big moment. It actually started after my divorce, when I was depressed and all that. And I found myself focusing, and I think we all, oh my gosh, I think humans are so good at this. We focus on the long list of things we can't do and we don't have. And it's easy to focus on that list, because if we're going to be honest, that list is way longer than the list of things we can do and do have. I mean, the list of things we can't do and don't have is really, really, really long compared to what we actually have and can do. And so I realized back then, I would be, again, I'm broke and I'm comparing my life, because when we're at our lowest, that's when we do the most comparing. Those are my dogs in the background, barking. And I found myself doing stuff like, oh, my kid, I can't take my kid to the amusement park. I can't take my kids on a vacation. All these other families are doing all this fun stuff. And then I started thinking, okay, yes, I can't do that, but what can I do? And I started creating these really fun picnics for my kids. And I would make a sandwich. This was like a silly little thing, but they still love it. I made a sandwich and I took scissors and cut it in weird shapes, like 5 things, almost like a puzzle. Yeah. And then we take a picnic and they'd have to put together a puzzle. And I was like, this is so fun. Like, we're all having fun, because I'm not sitting at home dwelling on the things I can't do. And I'm going, what can I do? I got a sandwich and I got scissors and I got a picnic blanket. Let's make the most of it. So it kind of started then. And I'm sorry about my dogs. They're nuts. Okay.
Life.
They are rescues, and they add to the chaos that is my life. Now, what's great is that, and we all have like these long to-do lists, right, of things that, we have to accomplish. And I've learned to just look at the to-do list and say, okay, what of this? Can you hear me over the dogs?
Totally. Yeah.
I'm so sorry.
It's okay.
I'm sure everybody with dogs can relate. There's probably somebody just like walking by, and my dogs are for sure convinced that person will murder me. That's what always happens. They're convinced, and they are saving my life right now. That's what those dogs are doing.
Listen, you saved them, and they just payback,
That's it. That's it.
So much. It's their paying forward.
Right. So what I was saying is, I will look at my long to-do list, and I look at it way more realistically now. Instead of like, oh my gosh, I have to get all this done. I'm like, really? Does this really matter that much? Does it have to get done today? Nope. Because the truth is, everybody in my family will survive. Nobody will drop out of school, and our house will not, get taken away from us if I don't accomplish every single thing on that to-do list.
Yeah.
So find the joy.
So finding the joy is such a good thing to remember. And I think it comes hand in hand with not fighting what is, right? Like, wherever we are in our lives, I also, my big realization around that was around laundry. I used to go into the basement and do laundry, and I freaking hated laundry. Like with venom. I hated doing the laundry, and I'm down here, and then like the poor me story, right? Like, I'm down here and I'm doing the laundry, and why is it always me and nobody else? And I have a husband who is an amazing, like, he doesn't help at home. He lives here. Like, we have conversations about lexicology. He's like, I don't help you. I live here, and therefore I do my part of the work, right? And we have that conversation with our girls often. Like, when you decide to choose your share to life with someone, that it wasn't even English, when you choose to share your life with someone, then, make sure it's somebody who respects you and loves you and does their share, not helps you because it's your job, right? So I have this amazing husband who he irons and he does all this. I haven't ironed one of his shirts in a decade. Like, why would I? It's his shirt.
Yeah.
And he travels a lot. And so I would be down there and I would be all like, with the laundry. And one day I thought, hang on a second. I chose to have kids. Mm-hmm. I live in a country, and we were talking about Glennon Doyle earlier. I chose to have kids, and like Glennon Doyle said when she did one of her videos a long time ago on her site, Momastery, when she used to write on it often, she was going to do a kitchen remodel. And she was asking people in her community about what she should do with her kitchen. And people were coming back and they were talking about it and they were giving her all these ideas. And then she made a video and she was like, hey, you guys, I made a video and I wanted to show you everything that we've done in the kitchen, and we've done nothing. You know why? Because look over there in the corner. I have this box that when I open it, it's cold and everybody's healthy because we have good food. And you know what else? And she was showing all the different parts of the kitchen, and it was like, oh my gosh, yes. Yeah. So I'm in the laundry room, going, I live somewhere where I have power. I live somewhere where the water runs hot and cold. I live somewhere where I can pay for that. I live in a safe country. That is not something that, particularly in today's political environment, but also for you coming from Croatia where you lived in a war zone. It's not a small thing. And we get so lulled into taking for granted the things that surround us and getting really grumpy and pissed for me about the things that we don't have and can't do, like you're saying, when all it takes is a sandwich and a freaking pair of scissors and a picnic blanket. I used to do picnics with my girls because my husband travels a lot. 80% of the time I'm a solo mama. And so we used to there would be days where I was like, I'm just not cooking. It's just, it's not fun. And I'm getting that. And And so I would make sandwiches and we'd have a picnic. And so I'd move the coffee table over. And I put the picnic blanket on the living room floor and have carrot sticks and celery sticks and cheese and, whatever sandwiches. And the girls, and we'd have silly dance music. It was the best thing ever. And
it's so easy. It's so simple.
Free, right? It doesn't have to be hard and complicated. And I think we, like you're saying, we compare ourselves to other moms and other families and we're comparing ourselves to the idea that we have of what those people's lives are like. But actually we have no idea.
Exactly. Everybody's struggling. Everybody's got their own sets of challenges. Not everybody's honest about it. So we assume that their life is perfect. But what you were saying about your little picnics and what I was doing with my kids, I think the one thing I wish that every parent realized is you already have so much power to make your life great.
Yes.
I mean, so much power. And my life, when I was struggling, it's not that my life got better and then I got happier. It's that my attitude changed first and then my life started to change. And I think people are like, I'm going to wait. I'm just going to wait till this and this and this and this and this happens. And then I'll be able to enjoy my life and be happy. And it's like, well, you're going to be waiting until you're dead because what you have to do is get off your butt and make your life happen. And you also have to accept that it might not be what your fantasy was because this is reality. This is real life. Stop pining for what you wish it all looked like and just accept what is and make the best of that. We have so much power. And I think there are just from the moms I talk to at conferences I speak at, there's so many moms that are just waiting. They're waiting. And you can't. You got to get feisty and you got to get active. You have to create it.
So this brings me on to a question. I'm sort of jumping ahead. I don't usually make question lists, but I have I do have some for you. I was thinking about this path that you took, and I listened to a beautiful podcast that you had done, a podcast on Mother's Quest. And I've put the link in the show notes to anyone who's listening, because it's a really great conversation that you've had with her. It's Julie Neal, I think, on Mother's Quest. And you were talking about how the question of, how did you get here? You went from being broke, suffering from depression, single mom, sleeping on the floor beside your kid's bunk bed, low on food stamps, not having a good time, and facing reality, like you said, it's one thing to have a fantasy, but the reality is we want to feed our kids, and you were working 2 jobs, it was a lot. And to go from there to where you are now, where you're this internet sensation and people know you all over the world. And the person who connected me with you is in Holland. And the connections are just, people have seen you everywhere. And one of my questions was there any Was there any indication or glimmer when you were a kid that you might end up doing something like this? Because from what I understand, it was a little bit accidental, but it was because you did stuff. So how about back to the kid part?
Well, it's interesting. So there's two parts to that. One is that I've always wanted to be a mom, and not in the sense of like, you know, the typical thing where you're a little girl and you have a baby doll and you play with it. I was like, when I would babysit, I would pay such close attention to how people were parenting, and I would take mental notes of, I want to do that. Nope, I don't want to do that. That works. Like weird, like at 11, like who does that? Nobody, you know, at 11, you're just like, I just want the cash, you know?
Yeah.
So that was kind of an indication that, but you know, I always just thought I'm really passionate about motherhood and I want to have children. I didn't think it would have anything to do with my career.
Yeah.
And then combine that with the fact that I've always been into theater. I did theater from a young age. My college degree is in theater. I feel at home when I am on stage. I mean, I have no nerves. I am very comfortable performing. So, and then when I did study theater and all that, I thought, you know, I will do theater for the rest of my life. And what's the only thing that a friend was just asking me, like, would you ever want to go back to doing theater? And I said, you know, the only thing for me that's more fun than doing theater is being myself and still getting to, you know, I don't have to put on a character. I get to just be vulnerable and be honest and be silly and wacky and, you know, bizarre when I want to, but it's all me. Yeah. And yet I still, you know, I'm comfortable in front of, you know, talking in front of a lot of people. So anyway, I never imagined I would have the career I have, but when I look back, it makes sense. It's like, I feel like I'm using my passion for motherhood and my strength, which is I'm comfortable in front of people. And I've sort of, without planning to combine it, sort of the universe just combined it for me. And here I am.
But universe combined it for you because you got up off your butt and you did stuff.
Absolutely.
Right?
I don't believe in luck in the sense how people think like, oh, I just got lucky. I think you work really, really hard, and if you're really prepared, then you might get those lucky breaks. And if you're not really prepared and you haven't worked hard, then no matter how much luck or whatever you want to call it is thrown your way, it will not matter because you have not worked your butt off. Or if it does matter, it will matter for a split second and then it'll all go away and it won't be lasting because you were not willing to work your butt off. Go ahead.
No, go ahead.
I was going to say, when I started making my videos, my parenting videos, I didn't know how to use a camera. I didn't know how to edit. My youngest was 1. Actually, he wasn't even 1. He was like 6 months because I was still breastfeeding. And I would be up at night. The whole house is sleeping. I'm up in the middle of the night with him. He's breastfeeding, and I'm literally Googling how to edit. I mean, I was like, anytime I was awake, I was working. And then, you know, just trying to figure out what works. And I didn't understand YouTube very well or social media or any of it. So I worked really hard, and I was making at one point 6 videos a month, all myself, filming, editing, everything, while raising 3 kids, while still trying to, you know, post recipes and articles on my website. It's a lot of work. And the great thing is that once you put in the work, then it actually can get easier later on because now you're going to be able to, you know, have help.
Yeah. Yeah.
So I no longer edit my own videos, which is amazing.
Yeah. Do all the fun stuff and not the grindy stuff. Yeah. So one of the things that struck me about the progression of you going from sleeping on that floor to where you are now, and for anyone who hasn't seen you or doesn't know your videos, I'll include links to all of that in the show notes. But was it one of the things that happened for you was that you, on a whim, decided to throw your hat in the ring for a competition where you would get for the next show on Oprah's network, so OWN network, and you won and had this cooking show because cooking is your other passion that you haven't mentioned. Yeah. And you had this cooking show and it ran for a year and then it wrapped up, and you had this food blog, and you would talk about food, and you could talk about how there's this one little corner on your website that was dedicated to parenting, but that you could feel when you were doing the thing on Oprah, which is like the dream, right? You have this show on Oprah that part of you is like, this isn't really the thing. There's a thing. And so you kept going. Can you tell us a little bit about what that was like? Like, how do you get to the place that, how many other, I can imagine thousands of people had applied for that competition. And, there you are, you won it, you've got it, you're doing the show, and you're like, meh. How do you get to hear that voice and to start to trust that inner?
Right. Well, it was actually, first of all, I got to give my husband credit because I got remarried and we couldn't afford a honeymoon. And so the day after our wedding, we're in our little apartment and he was like, what do you want to do? Like, you have all this passion and all this, just this drive. Is there something you want to do other than motherhood? And so he sort of, through his encouragement, I started creating cooking content and then ended up entering the Oprah competition, ended up winning. And I learned a big lesson because what happened is that the cooking show that I wanted to do, and it's interesting actually, I didn't even realize then how passionate I was about encouraging moms. And yet every single production meeting, my ideas for the cooking show were, things that would encourage moms. So I said, can I do an episode where my kid is throwing a tantrum in the kitchen because moms need to see that. Moms are sick of the perfect kitchen with the perfect chef. They need to see that another mom's kid is grabbing onto her leg, pulling her shirt down, making noise, crying while she's just trying to make a meal.
Yeah.
And, they were like, no, that's not going to look good on TV. And then I'd be like, okay, I have another idea. I have a really great idea. How about I make this elaborate meal? I spent all this time doing it. And then motherhood distracts me. Somebody's calling me. Somebody needs something. And I get back in the kitchen and the whole thing burned. And then the episode ends with, we order pizza. And they're like, no.
Oh my God, yeah.
Exactly. But when I look back, I think, my goal was I wanted those moms who were struggling the way I used to struggle to look at the show and go, I'm normal. Oh my gosh, thank you. You make me feel better. So it's funny to me now because I didn't think about it that way at the time. But all my ideas aligned with what I do now. My mission has always been the same. I was just going to do it through a cooking show. Now I'm doing it for something else. So when they said no to all my ideas and decided, no, you have to be in a perfect kitchen and you have to look perfect and your cooking techniques have to be perfect and you have to be an expert, which I was like, I've never taken a cooking class in my life. Like, I don't want that kind of show. Didn't matter. I had to, just be this ideal thing that I knew would be intimidating to moms and unrelatable. I was so bummed out and I felt like, you cannot, I tried to stand up for myself a little bit, but I thought if I complain or if I say, no, I'm not doing it your way, I'm going to look so ungrateful. There are thousands of people that auditioned that wanted this. How dare I complain? How dare I? So I just need to play along and be grateful. And first episode is about to air and my husband says, we got to throw a premiere party. We should invite all our friends, blah, blah, blah. This is a huge deal. And I start crying and I said, no, I'm not proud of this show. And I was crying not because I didn't get the show I wanted. I was crying because I felt shame that I was not grateful. And what I learned through that experience is you can be grateful and still stand up for yourself. Those two are not mutually exclusive.
Yes.
And that is so important. It's something I try to teach my kids too, because kids, you're going to be offered a lot of stuff in life and you can say, thank you, but no. Thank you, but that's not me. Thank you. I'm really grateful that you consider me for that, but I need to be authentic. And I know what, my goal and my passion, my calling is, and that doesn't align with it. And so now that I'm doing my own thing and I am not pretending to be perfect, I do get occasionally offers. I will get offers from brands to, be a spokesperson basically for a brand or do an ad for somebody or appear in a certain show. And if it doesn't align with me, I don't feel like, oh my gosh, 1,000 people would kill for this. I need to say yes and be grateful. I've learned to just be like, so grateful, but no.
Yeah, that's so powerful. And also interesting to me how the flip has happened for you where it's not fear driving the car. We were talking about Elizabeth Gilbert earlier about Big Magic. She says fear gets to stay in the car in the back seat, but it's not, it's not controlling the GPS, the radio station, or holding the map, and it's not driving. And when you're in that position of having been offered all of this stuff that you're supposed to feel grateful for, and you're supposed to feel like you've arrived, it's how much of that is fear of, well, if I'm not grateful enough, then good things like this won't happen again. Or if I'm not grateful for this sponsorship, then what if there isn't another one? Or I think it's actually what has borne out in your case, certainly from, the story I make up from the outside. And what has happened in my experience too, is the more we stand in what we really stand for and what we really and honestly are, the more opportunities start coming. Like it's such a silly example, but I had a little story for people who aren't aware of how we came to be connected, but we're birthday twins. We're born on the same day. And you're the first person I've ever met in 44 years of life who's born on the same day. And I had put on my Facebook page randomly, I'm totally borrowing this idea from Kristina Kuzmic, who said that for her birthday, she wanted people to be nice to each other, like to do a good deed. And I'm going to add that I'd like a picture of your smiling face. And also, hey, universe, for my birthday, I'd really love to have Kristina on the podcast because our messages align so much. And we're also both very unvarnished, and we're both cheerleaders of moms in totally different spaces in different ways. And so like, you're my mission twin too, and someone who I know emailed you randomly. She found your email. I hadn't even emailed you because I would have been like, oh, I don't know. And maybe not. I'm not ready. And she emailed you and you wrote back and said, yeah, hey. And had I not been doing this podcast and had I not been aligned and totally unvarnished and showing the things that I have someone who has said to me, she looked at my Instagram and she was flipping through it. She's like, it's not like, it doesn't really look that polished. And I was like, dude, motherhood isn't polished. Like,
right.
I sometimes drive my kids to school, and if I know I'm not getting out of the car, I still have my pajama bottoms on that have butterflies on them. Like the top's okay.
No, I will
get out.
I will get out in my pajama bottoms at the school. They know me now by my pajamas.
That's awesome. Well, like there are schools here in Geneva who are like they'll actually send notes home to the moms saying like, please dress appropriately.
Oh my gosh, hilarious! I would be kicked out first day.
Totally, but you know what I mean. Like so it's a question of thinking your way out of a situation or thinking your way into a dream isn't the way to get there. You have to act. And once you start doing it, then, like you applied, you threw your hat in the ring for the Oprah show. You did the Oprah show and you were like, no, this isn't working. And so you pivoted to the thing that felt aligned. Because if you had sat on the floor beside your kids' bunk beds and been like, I am going to be a YouTube sensation. I am going to encourage moms here from the bottom of the pit. I'm going to be encouraging moms.
Right.
Like, like it's not such a straight line. It can't just, boom.
And you got to do it for the right reason. I think a lot of times I hear a lot from people who are trying to do or want to do something similar to what I'm doing. And the first question I'll ask is why?
Yeah.
And if their answer has anything to do with following or viewership or whatever, I'm like, go back and rethink because you got to do things for the right reason. I don't think it will grow and become powerful if it's not coming from the right place.
Yeah.
People will read it as you are just trying to put on a show or, it's not authentic. Yeah. You have to have a real passion. And I think a lot of times people think that comes from sitting around and going, what do I love? I want to do what I love. What do I love? What do I love? What I love? And my opinion is that the real calling and passion, how we find it, is think about not what you love, but what do I hate? What angers me? What pains me?
Yeah.
Because, where my calling came from, and I've talked to so many people who are doing these remarkable things in their life, like way bigger than I will ever be able to do. And the one thing they all have in common is that passion, that calling came from what angered them or what saddened them. And to me, what hurts my soul is to think of another mom in the position I was in, feeling so worthless, feeling just such despair. And so my goal is to hopefully, reach that mom through one of my videos and let her know she's okay.
Yeah. And that she's not the only one. And I can tell you, as one of the moms who has watched many of your videos and I've even, carefully picked out ones that I wanted to share with my kids, because you have messages in there about, you're okay. Or the great video we were just talking before Kristina and I started recording, I introduced my girls to her because they were like, is she really real? And my oldest saw a video that you did like 4 or 5 years ago with your oldest son about bullying and about like be like barbecue sauce. And some people will, some people won't. And she we watched that a year ago. She's dyslexic. She has a lot of struggles, had a lot of struggles at school. And there were a lot of questions around her worth and was she good enough and all that kind of stuff, which is all the stuff we're all working with, right? It's not like I turned 44 and all of a sudden I feel good enough. I'm still waiting for the magic 8. I'm waiting for the person who brings the joy box to come with a good enough box. That would be good. So I'd like a good enough box. I'd like a worthy box, and I'd like a love box. We would all like those boxes.
Yes.
Like, the monthly subscription to Fresh Flowers. We should just have a monthly subscription of like, you're good enough.
Yes.
You're okay. You're not the only one. That's a business idea for somebody. Somebody should tell
I know. Amazon Prime.
Totally should. You did a video not so long ago, which is the things we say to ourselves video.
Mm-hmm.
And some people are easy criers. I am not. I'd like to be. But that video got me right where I needed it to get me. And it's something that I will often talk to my community about doing yourself a kindness. And as a yoga teacher, I will often say that in a practice, like, do yourself a kindness and just ease off and see where it feels, where you can feel the feel, but not feel the pain or the discomfort. And how are you talking to yourself? And that video where you brought out those pictures of the little girl versions of everybody, and then they did it to you too.
Yeah.
I was like, oh my God. Yeah. I hope you did stick that picture up somewhere where you see
Yeah. And I actually, my kids, well, the little one's only 4, but the older 2 each have a younger picture of themselves in their room. That I just, they're teenagers, so it's not like you can force them to practice this. But, I told them when you feel like you're saying bad things to yourself, just look at that picture and say it to that kid. And they can't. Yeah. Because we sound like such bullies. Yeah. If we try and say it to our younger version, we would sound like such bullies the things we say to ourselves, if we said it to our best friend or, our spouse or whoever, or our kids, we would sound like bullies. And yet we are completely fine bullying ourselves.
Yeah. So I asked my community before talking to you if they had a chance to talk to you, what would they like to ask you? And one person came back and said that she would love to know what your advice would be to moms who are very exacting and have an inner police officer or task mistress who is constantly on her perfectionist backside and trying to make sure that you do everything right. How would you suggest, or how have you found ways to connect to your kindness towards yourself and your compassion towards yourself?
I mean, honestly, that exercise in that video has helped a lot, because I just think, and when I start getting really tough on myself, I think, am I expecting more of myself than I'm expecting from the people I love and respect so much in my life? The people that I really hold dear and I think so highly of. Am I expecting more from myself, like unrealistically more? And just that kind of comparison makes you go, oh my gosh, I would never, like the thing that I'm dwelling on right now that I didn't get done today, or the way I answered that question, or the way I handled that thing with my kid. If my closest friend came to me and told me the story, I would never say to her, oh my gosh, you're terrible. You should stay up all night and dwell on this. You are a horrible human being. I would go,
don't call me again. Right.
I would be there would be so much compassion there. And, you know what? If it's a real mistake, you know what? We all screw up and it's all good. And, whatever, like none of us are perfect. Yeah. And if it's not a real mistake and something silly, I would give her so much encouragement. And so I just think we have to do that for ourselves. And sometimes that feels weird because it's like, why am I talking to myself? So don't write yourself a letter. When you start feeling that, sit down and just go, so it's interesting. When we put stuff in writing, it looks so ridiculous sometimes. So I've challenged moms before, like, if you're beating yourself up over something like, oh, I can't believe that I forgot to pack my kids' lunch and then blah, blah, whatever. Yeah. Write it down. And once it's on paper, you're going to go, this is really not life altering. Like nobody died. Like it's okay. But yeah, I think putting in perspective of we just would never, ever, ever treat other people the way we treat ourselves.
For me, what has come up a lot is that I find also being in the perfectionist type A, former corporate career, drive, lots of identity around that, which a lot of us have, right? We have this particularly in Western cultures, this real identification with what we contribute to society and what do we do. And that's often tied to paychecks for men and women. It's not just for women. And then we become just moms. The word just and mom should never be in the same sentence.
Right, exactly.
And what has come through for me really strongly is when I get to the edges of my management zone, I'll call it, it actually starts to bleed out to my kids. So I actually find myself things coming out of my mouth and I'm like, bring it back. Or, today we had an interaction that was not great. My oldest kid lost it on the younger one for something that was completely like not a big deal, and I came downstairs and it was such an explosive situation that the only way that tiny little brain at the back here was able to react was to get louder and bigger so that it would all stop. Like it had to stop. It was just getting control. And then you leave that situation and then it starts, right? Then comes out the stick and you're beating yourself up about being a bad mom and being a horrible person and what am I teaching my kid and it went on for a while to the point where I removed myself and came up and sat right there in my little chair in my office and had a big cry. And then she came up and she had a big cry and we say we talk in French, we speak in French, and we talk about reconnecting the strings. Like we tie the strings back between our hearts. We have these invisible strings that connect our hearts together. And
love it.
Sometimes those strings get snapped because something happens, but we can always reconnect them. And it's easy to get into that pattern, isn't it, of beating yourself up and then you feel bad. And then because you feel bad about yourself, what comes out of your mouth isn't like,
right.
The criticism committee and the perfectionist committee and the discouragement community and the doubting committee, none of those are helpful. I once wrote about replacing them by a board of directors that was in charge of possibility, optimism, encouragement,
love
and light. They haven't quite cemented their position, but we're working on it. One of the things that I often talk about and that you do as well is you did a great video about just stop criticizing other moms and stop shaming other moms.
There's another one that's coming out in a few weeks because I feel like that topic just needs to be repeated over and over because people aren't getting it. I'm gonna keep making those videos, the anti-mom shame, because I don't know. I'm hoping that if I say it differently, different times, it'll resonate
with different people. Totally.
Yeah.
People say to me what's your why? And I'll say to them I actually want to change the way that we treat ourselves as moms and change the way we treat each other as moms. I want to change the entire paradigm around motherhood and then change the world. No big deal.
Yeah. Yeah. No, you got it.
Yeah. It'll be done by lunchtime. But can you give us some examples of beautiful ways that you have seen women helping each other up and elevating each other? Like how do we do that in our day-to-day lives? I have some ideas and some experiences. Right. How and when and how does it work?
Okay. So here's one thing that I feel like helps when we feel judgment, right? And I say this to anybody out there who's, feeling judgy towards other moms or mom shaming or whatever. What we have to realize is basically every single time we shame another mom, we judge another mom, anything, what we're essentially saying is, I know it all. I know the right way for your family and for you to parent. And if you're really that egotistical, I can't help you. But most people aren't. Most people, when you put it that way, they go, oh, shoot, you're right. I don't know their circumstance. I don't know the history. I don't know the family dynamic. I don't know what their kid's going through. I don't know what happened that morning. I don't know what their pediatrician recommended. I don't know anything.
Yeah.
How dare I, right? So that's the first thing is realize what you're doing by shaming somebody. You are pretending that you are God and you know it all, and you don't. So sit down. But I think one of the greatest examples I can give, and who I strive to be like, and she's helped me with that, is my mother-in-law. My mother-in-law now lives a mile away from me. She used to live states away from me. She was in Florida, I was in California. And about a year ago, they moved a mile away from me. I had so many friends go, okay, I know you guys get along, because she comes to visit for a few days, but she's going to be living a mile away from you. Are you sure about this? And she's been a year. We have never had an issue. And here's why. I have to give her all the credit. She is different than me. She was a different parent than me. She fed her kids different things than I feed my kids. Her rules for her kids were different than my rules. The things that were important to her about how the house looked or how it was decorated, very different than mine. We are different in a lot of ways. And yet that woman has never come into my home and told me how to parent, how to decorate, how to clean, how to change this or do that. Never. She has this attitude of, it is your life. They are your children. I am going to see the best in you. I am rooting for you. And if you do it differently than me, that doesn't mean it's wrong. It just means it's different. And that's okay. And I don't have to always get it. I don't have to always understand why you do things differently than me. It's not my business to understand it. It's your life. And I'm just here to help you be your best. If you need me, I am here. If you want my advice, I will talk. If you don't, I will keep my mouth shut. I mean, just from that and how okay she is with the fact that I do things differently than her has made me go, my gosh, if we could all do this for other moms. Yes. And by the way, I think it's a lot harder to do that when you're mother-in-law, because you want your grandkids raised a certain way and you want your, son treated a certain way. Like, there's a lot more opinions involved. So I just feel like if Judy, those bracelets, WWJD, what would Jesus do? I keep wanting to make what would Judy do. If everybody could be a little more like Judy and say, just because somebody's doing it differently doesn't mean it's wrong. It means it's working for their family.
Yeah.
I mean, that is like, that's it. Mom shaming is gone. If we can all just think that way, it's gone.
Do you know what the other piece of it is that I often think about is just because I'm doing it differently than you do doesn't mean I'm criticizing you.
Exactly.
And that's a really big thing, right? Because we have like the mommy wars about nursing versus bottle, about disposable diapers versus not, about sleep training versus not, potty training versus not, feeding vegetables at this age. And it becomes this really conflictual space. And it doesn't have to be. Like, we cannot live alone. It takes a village to raise a child, and it takes a village to support a mom. And the first people who we need support from, and not condemnation or kind of side eye or anything else.
Yeah.
The first people we need the support from is other moms. And how about let's get curious? And how about we ask questions? And how about we learn from each other?
What can I learn from you? Yeah.
Yeah. What can I learn from you rather than let me tell you how,
But to be honest, from my personal experience, I find that the people who are shaming and lecturing and criticizing, they are the most miserable, unhappy people. They're wearing a smile. They're pretending life is great, but they're truly miserable. I have never met a really confident, happy woman who is criticizing other women. I've never, ever. My mother-in-law is a very confident woman who loves her life. She hasn't had it easy all the time. She's in her 70s and she still works at a grocery store. And a lot of people will be complaining about it. She doesn't. She gets up. She gets her work done. She makes the best of life. She has no reason to criticize other women because she likes who she is. She's confident in it. And she likes her life because she's decided to like her life. It's a decision, right? Happiness is a choice. She's decided to like her life. There is no reason for her to walk around criticizing me or anybody else. And so I just think if you feel critical, if you feel like you're judging, look at yourself, because there's something going on with you that's causing you to do that. It has really nothing to do with those other people. I started doing these little videos, they haven't been posted yet, where I'm just these little 1-minute things where I answer a question from a viewer. And one of the questions that I get a lot, and so I decided to address it, was, how do you handle haters? Or mom shamers, whether it's online haters or mom shamers in, regular life. And I said, I don't handle them because they're not mine to handle. Mm-hmm. Like, they're literally, they're not my job to handle. That's their issue. It has nothing to do with me.
Yep. So true.
The other thing I want to say on this topic is there are so many, and I could cry, there's so many kids in this world who have no one to love them, who do not have a family. There are the foster care system. It's crazy how many foster kids there are. There's so many babies that are abandoned, that are found in trash cans and left at, place. I mean, there are just so many horrible, horrible situations. There are kids that are growing up in families that are incredibly abusive and neglectful. So if a child is growing up in a loving home and you dare criticize how that mother is, whether she's breastfeeding or not, or whether she's sending her kid to private school or not, or whether it's a working mom or stay-at-home mom, like, who cares? Like, there are so many bigger things. If you want to hate on something, you want to criticize something, like, don't sprinkle in everything. Like, choose it carefully. Why don't you hate injustice? Like, hate the fact that there are kids growing up with no food and absolutely no one to look at them and say, I love you, or tuck them into bed. Like, do something about that. If you're going to get angry about that. But do not get angry about a mother raising her kids a little differently than you are. Like seriously, pick your battles, people.
Or judging someone who, because we all have moments like I had earlier today, or, you see kids melting down in grocery stores, or a mom who maybe grabs her kid's hand because it's the 17th tantrum in that hour and she just needs to get home, and maybe she's separating from her husband. Like we don't know. Like everyone's fighting a battle that we don't know about. And compassion needs to come first. And kindness needs to come first. And, but that can't happen unless we've got the game going on inside, right? If you can't, when we have moments like we had this afternoon, like if I can't walk away from that and be like, okay, honey, whew. And I did, I came upstairs and I put my hands on my heart and I was like, oh, okay, that's like grown up me was like, okay, what's going on? And what came up for me was, this isn't how I wanted my family to be. I wanted my family to be happy, and I want my kids to look at me with delight, and I want them to love each other and be fun and playful and happy. And the reality is right now, there's some sibling rivalry. Do they love each other? Totally. Do they play together well? Yes. They're cooking dinner alone right now. They're almost 9-11. So if somebody wants to hate on that, too bad. They're making ham and cheese tortillas and they're super happy and baked in the kitchen. It's all good. And what came up was I really wanted this fantasy and I'm not getting it. And it was really loud and shouty. And so I made it stop. And grown up me was like, wow, okay, I really hear that. I see you. I love you. And this is what we got right now. Like, this is how we're working. And I'm not going to let you kind of shout louder than the kid. Like, this is.
Well, and the truth is, like, children need to see that. I think, there's going to be conflicts. We are going to lose our patience. We're going to make mistakes as parents. Yeah. I think it's good for the kids to see that. And it's really important for the kids to see us resolve it, to see us apologize to them when we need to see us forgive ourselves when we need to, because they're going to face those things in life in general, whether it's in their marriage or in their workplace or wherever with their friendships. And we are teaching them how to deal with it. So we should never feel guilty for not being able to create this idyllic home where everybody's always getting along. If there's anything you should ever feel guilty about is if you don't show them the resolution. Like, how do you resolve it? All of that is fine as long as you teach them how to resolve it. Teach them forgiveness. Teach them compassion. Teach them how important I'm sorry, a genuine I'm sorry is. But the other thing about the criticizing mom thing is, a lot of times when people are judging other moms, they're doing it, they're sort of saying that it's because they care about the kid. I care about that kid and that kid isn't getting, and here's the thing. A mom who is being criticized constantly, a mom who is being judged is going to feel worse about herself. And as she feels worse about herself and as she feels more guilty and she's got all this crap that you're piling on her, that is not going to make her a better mom to those kids. You are hurting the children by hurting the mom. So if you care about the kids, you're going to empower the mom. So much of what I do, yes, I'm passionate about motherhood, but I'm really passionate about kids. I mean, I can't handle seeing a kid suffer. And I believe that by empowering moms, not criticizing, empowering moms, you're going to create better moms and you're going to create better mother-kid relationships. Mm-hmm. And you're actually helping the kid. So when you see that mom in a grocery store and her kid is throwing a tantrum, a huge scene, instead of throwing him a dirty look, go encourage that mom, because that's going to make that mom go, you know what, I'm okay. And if she's okay, the kid's going to be okay.
Totally. Yes. I keep wanting to go, yes, every time you say this, because it is, our outer interpretation of what we see on the surface, A, has no context that belongs to that situation. B, has all of our own baggage context. So whatever that means. So we're reacting to our own stuff, which has nothing to do with that person. And what if we fight the bystander effect, which is like in social psychology, it's a thing. Like, people will see something happening and they'll assume that someone else will go help, assume that someone else will do something. And like, there'll be an entire crowd of bystanders doing nothing to distance themselves. So go through the bystander effect and go to that person and say, hey, can I help you? Do you want me to push the cart so that you can carry your kid? Do you want me to, do a thing. Yeah. Don't be a bystander and don't be a judgy bystander or drive-byer, like drive-by side-eye, person, because it just adds toxicity to that situation, which obviously isn't feeling good for the mom and obviously isn't feeling good for the kid and obviously is triggering all kinds of stuff for everybody else.
Right. Here's what I tell my kids. I often say to them, you have a choice every single day of your life. You have a choice whether you want to add good or add hurt. Mm. And by the way, silence sometimes is adding hurt. Mm-hmm. Because if a kid is being bullied and you are just standing there, it's so easy for the kid to assume they don't care, or even worse, they agree with me being bullied.
Yeah.
Because silence can be like, oh, they're fine with it because they're not saying anything. Yeah. So you have a choice every day, add good or add hurt. Yeah. And it is so easy to be kind. It is so easy to add good. So just choose that.
Yeah. Oh, what a great place to wrap our conversation. I know you have another meeting coming up right after this, but I have one more question for you. I have a bunch more, but I'll just ask you this one. Where do you get your MamaFuel?
Really from my friendships. I think the village is so important. From other moms. A lot of it comes from my viewers. I get the most incredible letters, from moms that are just, it's all I need on certain days to be like, this is exactly what I'm supposed to be doing. On days when I'm like, I quit. I'm tired. But also from friendships, the one thing I started thinking about lately, and this is so important, is from a young age, we feel like we need to do it alone. We feel like, think about it. When our kids are little and they do something, we give them a treat because you did it all by yourself. Wow, you did it all by yourself. And we're raised to think we have to do it all by ourselves. And I am so big on ask for help, get the help, whether it's a friend or therapist, it doesn't matter. Yeah. You do not have to go through this life alone. And I'm so much of my energy and inspiration, everything comes from, and just the comfort and the peace and all of that comes from having these amazing, solid women in my life that are so supportive and yet will tell me the truth and put me in my place when I need to be put in my place.
Yeah. Well, supportiveness is speaking truth, right? And that's what you do. And that to me is why you connect so much with moms. And what I do as well, whenever I'm communicating is just speaking your truth and being real and raw. And sometimes that means saying, hey, you know what, that really wasn't cool. And here's how that felt to me, or here's what this looks like to me, or, hey, I'm noticing this pattern in what you're doing. I remember last time you said that you didn't want to do this and now here you're doing it again. Remember, like that. Right. Support doesn't mean fawning. Support means truth telling. Yeah.
And be confident enough that you can handle someone saying, nope, or you're wrong, or, it's funny. We talk about mom criticism and a lot of people are like, well, then can I tell my best friend that whatever? Here's the thing. Have your inner circle. I feel like if you have your inner circle that you are loved and you are safe there, that's the people you go to for truth and for, hey, lay it on me. And then everything else is just noise. Like, let that go. But have your inner circle that can tell you the truth and can call you on your stuff.
Yeah. Brene Brown talks about the difference between fitting in and belonging. And she talks about how we will do anything as tribal beings to belong, right? And we will fit ourselves in to try to belong. And they're very different things, right? Like fitting in, I change myself to belong, but actually one can never lead to the other. Whereas belonging is when you get to be fully, completely yourself as you show up to all of us, as you encourage all of us to be by your very being and behavior and communication, and how it's so important. Like we talk about, don't care what other people think. And I'll say this often to my kids, like whose opinion matters here?
Right.
Mine. I go, exactly. Your opinion matters. But I'm now going to nuance that by saying, actually, there's a very small, like in The Greatest Showman, right? Like not everybody needs to love you. If you have a small number of people who love you and whose opinions matter, that's enough. And like you said, all the rest is just noise.
Yeah.
Well, I hope that you will keep making as much noise in the good way as you have been making, because truly you have touched my heart and my girls and so many countless millions of people who have been watching your videos and following you on Facebook and watching your Instagram stories. And I am so thrilled that the universe and my friend in Holland conspired to contact you and make my birthday wish come true, which was to talk to you on the podcast. It's been so great.
Thank you. Thank you for having me.
Oh, thank you. And I wish you a gorgeous day.
Thanks. You too.
Bye.
I hope you enjoyed that conversation with Kristina Kuzmic as much as I loved recording it. It was so great to talk to her and to realize how exactly the same she is on her videos as she is when you have a conversation. It felt like talking to an old friend, and I really value the conversation that we had and hope that you found some useful, entertaining, and great nuggets in there too. One of the things that I really took away from the conversation was this aspect of bullying ourselves, how we often judge or shame or criticize other mamas. And it only happens because we're doing it to ourselves all the time. And we won't be able to fulfill my giant mission, which is to change the way that we treat ourselves and therefore make it possible to change the way we treat each other and therefore make it possible to change the entire world. No biggie, by lunchtime. Please. That's not possible unless we are aware of how we talk to ourselves, unless we are aware of how we treat ourselves, unless we are aware of how we move around in the world. So to help you figure that out and connect into how you are behaving with yourself and treating yourself, I created the self-love scan, which you can find on thecenteredmamaproject.com/scan. And basically it's a series of questions to help you connect into how you talk to yourself, how you treat yourself. If you have any unmet needs, which, hello, human life, you will. We all do, no matter our age, stage, gender, whatever. We all have unmet needs. That's part of life. But there are some needs that can be met by other people when A, you know what they are, B, you ask for help, and C, you let that help arrive and receive it gratefully and with love. So head over to thecenteredmamaproject.com/scan and download that free resource. I know it's going to be of use to you, and I would love you to come into our Facebook group at thecenteredmamaproject.com/Facebook and tell us how it went. Tell us what you thought. Tell us what you discovered in the self-love scan, because I know there's some goodness in there for you. Look forward to hearing about it. Signing off for now. See you next week. That's it for today's episode of MamaFuel, the podcast. Thanks for listening. There's a lot more conversation, sharing, and real mama talk happening in our private Facebook group. To join us, go to www.thecenteredmamaproject.com/Facebook and make sure you say hi when you get there. If you like this episode, or if you know a mama who could use a little mama fuel, I'd love you to share this episode and to rate and leave a review. Every comment helps, and it is always a delight to hear from you. Thanks, and bye for now.